one criticism that remained was that took a couple days for those strikes to happen in the aftermath of the killing of the 3 troops. And the reason that was a big deal is there were accusations that the Biden administration waited long enough for Iran to get its most important personnel or equipment out of harm's way in that in-between period.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by defense reporter Mike Brest. Mike, the response to U.S. service members being attacked overseas is ongoing. What's the latest on that, and what is some of the international reaction to it been?
Great question. The U.S. carried out an airstrike in Baghdad, Iraq yesterday. U.S. Central Command said that they were targeting a senior Iraqi militia leader, though they haven't disclosed his identity yet. So that is the latest iteration of the U.S. response to the 3 service members that this militia group killed in Jordan about a week and a half ago now. We've heard from Iraqi military officials who were very upset that the U.S. carried out this strike. They called it an assassination. They said these types of strikes that the U.S. has now conducted a couple times targeting these militia groups are creating unrest in the region. And so we know that the U.S. and Iraqi military officials agreed back in August, before any of this came up, to reevaluate in a couple months the U.S.-Iraqi military partnership. And so those conversations are now ongoing, but they predate this current sort of unrest in the region.
Members of Congress, especially on the Republican side of the aisle, have been pressing for a stronger response to these militia attacks on U.S. service members. Were they placated by what Biden has done so far, or are there still calls to do more?
So there are definitely the most hawkish Republicans who are calling for President Biden to approve strikes within Iran. And so that would be a very serious and significant escalation that, by all accounts, the administration isn't looking for. That being said, the U.S. has met a lot of sort of the suggestions or outrage about sort of a lack of a response because they did carry out pretty significant strikes last week. However, one criticism that remained was that took a couple days for those strikes to happen in the aftermath of the killing of the 3 troops. And the reason that was a big deal is there were accusations that the Biden administration waited long enough for Iran to get its most important personnel or equipment out of harm's way in that in-between period.
Secretary of State Blinken has had a trip to the Middle East against the backdrop of the Israel-Hamas war. What are some of the takeaways from that?
Secretary Blinken was in the Middle East to really advocate for the agreement of a new ceasefire and then hostage release agreement between Israel and Hamas. He met with Egyptian, Jordan, as well as Arab and Israeli leaders during his trip. They gave Hamas a proposal that they came up with, these intermediary governments, in late January. And while Blinken was there, Hamas actually responded to their proposal with a counter proposal. Now, Secretary Blinken had time to review the proposal and did say that there included some what he called non-starters in their proposal. However, he acknowledged that this was sort of a process of ongoing negotiations, and he does see sort of a light at the end of the tunnel that they're working for. Now, one of the biggest obstacles that Secretary Blinken has to work through is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has some far right-leaning members of his party who he is to some extent beholden to, who don't agree necessarily with the Biden administration's policy towards Israel and how the war should be fought and what should happen next in Gaza.
So Biden has tried to express a lot of solidarity with Israel and have the U.S. government and the Israeli government be really interconnected and speaking with one voice on a number of these issues. But we are increasingly seeing a bit of daylight between the Biden administration and the Netanyahu government, aren't we?
You're right. And so a big aspect of where this comes into play is mainly with what Gaza looks like post-conflict. And so the U.S. has said for a long time that they want to see a revitalized Palestinian Authority, is how they characterize it, take over Gaza. And so the Palestinian Authority currently runs the West Bank. And so it would be sort of it would be one government leading both territories. And so Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has essentially ruled that out. Members of his party have gone even further, saying that they believe Israel should incentivize Palestinians to leave Gaza permanently. Now, the U.S., as well as a number of other Middle Eastern Arab governments, have strongly condemned any sort of relocation attempt, or even just the changing of Gaza's borders to make it a smaller entity.
Thank you, Mike. You can read Mike and the rest of our national security team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.